So, what theme are we going for with all these books?
They're all vaguely differently sized.
So they're comics of unusual size.
Yeah. Princess Bride nerd joke.
Yes.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com and Netflix.com.
Welcome to iFanboy, the video show from the comic book discussion website, iFanboy.com. That's a mouthful.
It is.
I am Josh Flanagan over here.
I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Connor Kilpatrick. And today we're talking comic books.
What a
surprise! Normally we have some sort of theme. We talk about an event or a specific book or a creator. But today we're just pulling books out of our vault.
Out of our shelves.
Books we like, books we think you should like.
The Vault was a working title.
Yes, but now it's become part of the show lexicon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we always like to pick out books from our shelves and bring them on the show and talk about why we love them and why you should try them or why you should try them or just basically share the love of comics.
They're very close to my face.
Yeah, well, we're getting...
I'm going to do this.
All right, then.
And so Ron's up. Ron?
Glasses.
Don't touch my face. Weird.
Why don't you tell the folks about your book?
So I thought this week I would go deep into my vault and pull out a book that I know that we've all read, that we've all loved, but we haven't talked about in a long while, and that's the original first series of Runaways.
That's dog-eared.
It is dog-eared. This is actually the Digest Marvel Age version of it, but you can actually get this in a very nice oversized hardcover that's out, which that's the one I would recommend. But if you haven't heard of Runaways, it's currently in issue form. It's on like volume 3 or 4.
Volume 3.
Yeah, and right now it's Terry Moore's writing it with some different artists in on it. And before that, Joss Whedon was on it. But Runaways gained a lot of popularity in the early 2000s because it was one of Brian K. Vaughan's earliest hits, really.
Part of the failed Tsunami line.
Yes, yeah. The Tsunami line was a line of comics that were kind of a little different, taking some of the lesser characters of the Marvel Universe and trying to spin, kind of new kind of stories out of them. And out of that line, for some reason, somehow Brian K. Vaughan was able to sneak through this book, which was all different characters, all new characters, and was so fresh and engaging that it outgrew the line that it was a part of. When the line folded, it stuck around and became really like a kind of like a cult hit.
And folded into the Marvel Universe itself.
It's funny because Vaughan was, he was known at that point for doing Y the Last Man, but hadn't really had a hit in mainstream comics, I suppose.
Right. And I don't think, at this point, I don't think Y was that much of a hit.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
People knew about it, but it wasn't it wasn't the phenomena. And so this was the thing that a bunch of other people weren't reading Vertigo or whatever. Right. This was the thing that they were like, oh.
So this is Adrian Alfona, I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. Adrian Alfona did the art on it, and Brian K. Vaughan wrote it. And what's great about this is it's the premise. Is that it's a group of teenagers who, when you're a kid and your parents drag you to their friend's house and you got to play with their kids.
Yeah, the awkward play, the awkward forced playing.
Yeah, always awkward.
Well, that did farm chores. I don't.
In Civilization, we had awkward hangouts.
I've never been to a farm.
So what happened was that you had a group of kids whose parents all hang out, and none of them have anything in common. One of them's a video game playing kind of normal guy. Another one's
jockey guy,
jockey kind of doofus kind of guy.
Goth girl.
Not where you set your normal guy rate. It's the video game.
The video game guy, yeah. So they're all different kind of backgrounds.
Plus one's really young.
Yeah, not even like a preteen. Yeah. These are all teenagers and wonderfully awkward. And in this first volume, they stumble upon the fact that they find out that their parents are, in fact, a group of supervillains.
Which is doubly great, because when you're a kid, you always think, my parents are evil.
Yeah, exactly. And these parents actually are evil.
They're actually evil, and that's what happens when you find that out.
They run a crime syndicate called the Pride. And another interesting thing about this is that the book takes place in Los Angeles, which for a Marvel book is very, very not the norm. Most of the books take place in New York City or
he lived in New York City at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So so you got a bunch of different things operating on different levels, and what's really cool is that as the book progresses, you find out how each kid is really truly the child of their parents. One of the blonde girl, the kind of very pretty girl, turns out she's an alien, has powers, and
Carolina.
Yeah, the kind of doofus jockey guy, his parents are they're like science kind of gadget people, and he has an affinity for that. And so they all kind of fall in their roles, but they make the decision saying, okay, our parents are villains, we're good, we're going to stop them. And so they run away. And it's
not even good. They just want to get out away first.
They see the parents murder something.
Right.
Yeah.
So a sacrifice.
Yeah. So it's a murder.
Yeah. So this the first and the second volume were both written by Brian K. Vaughan. They were just so like I said, they were so fresh. It was just a different take on the whole kind of paradigm of superheroes and supervillains and stuff like that.
We should differentiate volumes because, for instance, this is volume 1.
Right.
Volumes included Brian K. Vaughan's whole 20-some-odd issue.
25 run.
Right.
There was a 12-issue run, and that was like season 1.
Right.
And then he came back later, and then that was volume 2, and then Joss Whedon did a run, and then Terry Moore is doing a run.
Right, but this is just volume 1 of volume 1.
Right.
So I just want people to know that he did more than these 2 books.
Exactly. Yeah. And I wouldn't. And even while this is the digest version I bought it in, again, go back to get the hardcover because that's the one that contains all of the season 1. And it's just great. And it was originally that first season 1 was somewhat self-contained. It told a story. There was
nothing required. There's no prerequisite for reading it.
Exactly.
It is in the Marvel universe, but. No. It's not really heavily reliant on that. Later, the Marvel Universe becomes more a part of it, but...
So I would definitely recommend this if you haven't checked it out. The current series is ongoing, so if you like it, you can go back and visit these characters. But this is kind of like, you know how when you watch a TV show that's been on for like 5-6 seasons, and you remember how great that first season was? That's what this book is. It's just so, like nothing else that was like this when they came out.
It's a really good crossover book, I find. Like it's the kind of thing that you can give to people who don't necessarily read a lot of comic books, and it's sort of a mainstream comic book, but it's sort of different. It's a really good entry point sort of comic.
What I think is really interesting about it is that the kids are written really well, really believable. Sometimes some writers have a hard time writing kids, and I remember Bendis and the Ultimate Spider-Man. There were some people didn't believe that Bendis could write kids and all that kind of deal. Vaughan really tapped in and was able to write these kids.
Vaughan's strength is character. It's always been character.
Yeah. And within that, within writing them, the relationships between the kids, like somebody's got a crush on somebody, and he, it becomes the supervillain story, almost becomes the background to these characters, which is,
The other thing it does is I think it really nicely straddles a line between being a book that any age can read, but also having enough there for more sophisticated readers to be able to grab onto.
Oh, I'd give this to a teenager in a second.
Right, but it's like a Pixar movie almost.
Yeah.
It's really appropriate for many levels of reading type. There's just a lot going on there, and you pick up on enough of it, out of depending on your experience being able to read this stuff, which is really cool. I mean, that's no small thing at all.
And it doesn't lack for the Brian K. Vaughan tropes of great cliffhangers, and a chapter, and you're like, oh, and you didn't see that coming and stuff like that. So
there's a couple of big twists in that first volume
between each chapter.
And imagine that. So so check out Runaways, Marvel Comics. You can, like I said, you can order the hardcover, or they've got it probably in smaller editions as well. It's definitely one of the best books to come out in this decade, I think. So that was Runaways, and when we come back, we'll hear what Connor's got for us.
Hey everybody, GoDaddy.com has what you need. And what do you need? Well, .com names are as low as $1.99 a month. They got world-class hosting, fast and free website builders. GoDaddy's hosting plans have 99.9% uptime, free 24/7 support, and no annual commitment. The private domain registration from GoDaddy.com protects your privacy by keeping your address, phone number, and more out of the public database. You can customize your own virtual dedicated server by choosing one of 3 popular plans, or by selecting your own Linux or Windows server with all the plan options you might need. You can get a GoDaddy.com secure certificate for your website, and visitors, prospects, and customers will have total confidence in your online business. And if you're a podcaster or a video blogger, you're going to want a .tv domain name to stand out from the crowd. Also, be sure to check out revision3.com/GoDaddy for all iFanboys GoDaddy deals and codes.
Last year, we had a big surprise hit amongst the 3 of us, at least.
My new CD dropped.
Yep. Really, I didn't expect your CD to go that high in the charts, which is all him just drumming.
Air drumming.
Virgin Comics, the late comic book company, which isn't around anymore, put out a bunch.
Ill-fated Virgin.
Ill-fated Virgin Comics, ill-conceived perhaps. Put out a bunch of books that nobody really caught on to, but we discovered Dan Dare last year, and this is the hardcover version of Dan Dare, which Dynamite Entertainment has put out now. So
good for them to pick up the.
I guess they picked up the rights, and that was the one thing I wanted out of Virgin, was to get this collection. It finally came out just recently, and it's listed as the Dan Dare Omnibus.
Interesting. That's a generous characterization.
I mean, if you can see, it's thin. It's only 7 issues long. And when I think of Omnibus, I think of something like this. Which is
episode 1 he does this.
This is the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus, and this is the Dan Dare Omnibus, and as you can see.
Well, is there a statute? Is there a limit on the number of pages that an omnibus can?
An omnibus is a flexible term.
Yeah,
we looked it up.
I mean, if you look at DC, the omnibuses, the Starman omnibus,
it just means
but it's bigger than that.
Collection.
Yeah.
In one volume, so technically multi-volume collections are not an omnibus.
I think you're nitpicking.
No, actually, it's funny. We were actually looking it up. Any trade paperback qualifies as an omnibus, considered under the definition. So
It's more of a marketing term.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the marketing term tends to apply to these big ones, which I'm not going to lift up again because that was heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah, I'm all right. I may have pulled a labrum. I don't know what that is.
Labrum.
No, I know labrum is something, but I don't know if I pulled it.
Do you have one? Is that a girl part?
No.
What's it like?
Labia.
Oh,
And it's back.
So this is the complete collection of the miniseries that we all read.
Yep.
And I loved this miniseries.
Yeah,
we all three read it.
I
Yeah.
don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I totally read it.
I just kept talking to Connor about it. I just figured you were like,
Story of my life.
This was one of the
No, science fiction. I love
This is one of the great surprise
Science fiction.
one of the great
Come on.
surprise books of 2007.
Who did it?
2008. This is written by Garth Ennis with art by Gary Erskine, and it's a science fiction war story set in the future, really, and it was unique to anything I'd read. There was nothing else like it. It was basically Garth Ennis finding a way to do more war comics. But
Well, the character has got a bit of a legacy.
Dan Dare is an old English British comics character. He created right after the war, World War II, and he's been around 50 years plus.
sort of a Captain America.
He kind of is. Sort of. Dan Dare, the character, is a pilot. He's a super space pilot, where in the Dan Dare world, they've gone into space and they've got space armadas and things like that. And he's the best pilot they've ever
He's like
had.
the quintessential British soldier.
RAF.
Right.
You know, like he's stoic. He's brave.
He's got the
Self-effacing.
fuzzy jacket.
Yes, the jacket. That's
the
huge.
leather jacket with the fur.
He's got amazing
And
eyebrows.
What's great about this series is none of us have ever read Dan Dare books.
Never even heard of him.
You don't need to have read anything. You don't need to know anything about the character. Everything you need to know is in the story. All the information is there, and it's really interesting because it's like the return of his big villain.
Yep.
It's almost like in 50 years, Batman comics go away, and somebody writes a miniseries. The Joker comes back, but that's how big his villain is. But you don't need to know anything about that. You don't need to know their history. You just need to know everything's presented in
the villain's literally a little green man.
He's from Venus.
He's ridiculous. What's his name?
The Mekon.
The Mekon, of course, right.
It was a good band, the Mekons.
I wonder if it was related.
So in this, the setup for the story is in the future when China and the U.S. have wiped each other out. The British Empire is the dominant empire in the world,
Again.
which is all the British science fiction is always set up around.
It's always going back to the Empire.
What if in this one, the Empire's back? I like the way you think.
What was that War in Hell space book?
Ministry of Space.
Ministry of Space was like that too.
That book was great and never came out.
Chris Weston.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so basically the Mekon comes back and
Martin
they have to bring Dan Dare out of retirement to save the world again. And it was exciting. There was some emotional. I reread this all at one sitting, when I got this, and it's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
There's some heart-wrenching stuff in here. There's some great, and I'm not British, but there's some great British moments in it.
Patriotic moments.
And very sort of
Whatever the foreign equivalent of that is.
Well, is patriotic just an American term?
No.
No, but I think
right.
it's about the country that you're in. You can't be patriotic about
Well, you can be
Rah-rah.
rallying.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there's space battles, there's battles on planets. I mean, there's
the thing that I remember is the sort of the naval battles.
yes.
Because they've got
The
these
naval
ramming-
battles are
Isn't there a
incredible.
ramming?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
they've
a ramming.
got these big ships, but really what
It's
they
naval
are-
battles in space.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can take all the space away and you make it the ocean, and it's this. It's like, wait a minute, this is just the same thing as a big.
And I love they have these little holographic flags
Flags, yeah.
flying as the ships are going. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really cool.
So if you like science fiction, it's great. If you like war comics, it's great because it's basically just
If
a
you
war
like
comic.
Battlestar Galactica, you'd like.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
If you liked the end.
I know. So that a lot of people, iFanboy viewers, read it, but I think more people should read it than.
Yeah,
than
and now
did.
it's in one collection. You get it from Dynamite. That's awesome.
It's a really well conceived single
Garth Ennis
single book.
doing one of his better. Garth
Yeah.
Ennis at his best. There's different kinds of Garth Ennis.
This
my
is
favorite
this is
Garth
the
Ennis.
good kind of Garth
This is
Ennis.
the same Garth Ennis who's doing.
There's no language. There's no raunchiness. There's
Yeah.
nothing that'll make you cringe. It's just
Yeah.
straight up. This is war stories Garth Ennis stuff.
yeah.
This is Battlefields Garth Ennis. This is that kind of Garth Ennis. This is not
It was
The
great.
Boys. This is not Preacher. This is not Punisher. This is not Crossed Garth Ennis. This is the different Garth Ennis.
This is great. So.
Great art by Gary Erskine. He does the sort of Britishness.
The book's got really interesting
Back matter.
back matter. The way that Erskine puts together pages, which is fascinating.
Yep.
And he uses photo referencing, but no one seems to give him shit for it.
Well, I mean,
Photo referencing. There's different kind of photo.
Right,
Yeah, I
but
mean-
which
I
is,
mean,
he
is
takes the pictures, he does the things like that's
Well,
how
what I thought
he
was
works.
interesting was that he uses not only photo referencing, but as we were talking about, he lays out the whole the page layout with the photos,
Yeah.
and then draws it.
It seems like twice the work.
It does, yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It looks like a lot of fun though.
Yeah,
yeah. So.
but he's on time. That's what I'm saying.
But this is a great collection, and I'm so excited it finally came out. When they first announced it, it was right before Virgin folded.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is
I
never
remember
going to
that.
happen.
Yeah, it's never, yeah.
And then
But
it
they
did.
finished it.
Yeah,
so
way
it's
to
good
go.
stuff.
Yeah. So when we come back, more war.
Hoorah.
Thanks to Netflix for sponsoring this episode of iFanboy. With Netflix, you can rent over 90,000 titles online, including lots of Blu-ray titles, with free shipping both ways to your home. They now have over 40 shipping centers, so almost all deliveries happen in just one business day. And Netflix plans start at $4.99, and as a new member, you can get a no-risk 2-week free trial membership by checking out www.netflix.com/iFanboy, and remember to use www when using that code.
And we're back with the third one.
And we're back.
And we're back. Get out of the box.
Okay. This is Alan's War by Emmanuel Guibert. That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's from First Second Books. Normally they do a smaller book. This is a little bigger than their other one. But again, these are books of unusual size. See how I wrote it.
It's a good size, though.
Yeah.
It's a really good size. This is a re-edition of a French book. But it's about an American GI from World War II. So basically the story is...
Is it Franco-Belgian?
It's Franco.
So it's a translation.
It's a translation, but let me give you the story.
Okay.
Alan Cope was a kid. He lived in Pasadena, California. When World War II broke out, he joined the military, and he got shipped off to camp and ended up getting there. He ended up getting to Europe eventually, sort of after the bad part.
He missed the bulge.
He did. He didn't really see much action. So it's
Normandy.
a very different sort of story than a
It's
lot
a
of
liberation story rather than a...
Well, okay. If you've read Stephen Ambrose books, or you've watched Band of Brothers. It's like a very heroic,
He's getting choked up.
I am in the mud, like fighting Germans, or even in the Pacific Theater. This is sort of like it's driving around Europe after, like the cleanup duty that has to take place afterwards, and it's a very different kind of story of war than I think that I'm normally used to. A lot of times you see a story where it's all about the fighting and the heroism, and this is a lot more like you're stuck with all these guys.
It's marching, eating, sitting, marching, driving.
It's just kind of weird.
It's beautiful.
It's and that's the next. Basically, the reason that I wanted to talk about this book is that I saw a review about it somewhere, as in like top 10 books of 2008 or whatever. I thought I should read that because it sounds like my kind of thing. I got it. I read it on a plane, and I got off the plane, and the first thing I could think, because I was going to see these guys, and first thing I was like, I just read the most amazing graphic novel I've read in I don't know how long, because it perfectly captures who this person is. It follows him through World War II and the end of that, but it also then follows him basically the rest of his life. And the way that the story worked is that Alan Cope, after the war, basically moved to France to live, and he found ways. He was a civilian employee of the army. But he was this really sort of amazing guy, and he met this cartoonist, Emmanuel, and they became very good friends. Big age difference, and they just hung around and talked. And basically, he taped these interviews about his life, and then wrote it. He did the whole thing, was told to him in French. Yeah. So it was a story as an American being told to the cartoonist in French, and then now it's translated back into English. And then the cartoonist went through and illustrated the entire thing. There's no word balloons, I don't think,
no,
for the most part. I think
there are word balloons.
There's one or two, but for the most part, it's a storytelling exercise. And it's even, he says make sure you read the introduction if you read this, but he explains, like, some of the stories don't make exact sense if you go back and check it, but he goes, I love to hear the way that he told me the story, because he's an amazing storyteller, and just as a person, it's really interesting. And, like, he meets, like, these sort of semi-famous philosophers and artists that he becomes friends with, and there's a whole story about how he goes up to Redwood Forest to see General Sherman, and the book is just all-consuming and spanning. Like, it does all of these different things about this one sort of really interesting person's life.
Yeah.
Wasn't General Sherman in the Civil War?
No, it's the tree. It's the big tree.
Oh.
A tree?
Tree.
A tree.
Oh.
It's the
Is the tree called General Sherman?
Isn't that
General Sherman?
the sequoia?
I don't know.
The biggest.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Yeah, I'm not wrong. It's the biggest tree in the. There's a really. It's a.
In
really
France?
No, it's in the redwoods. You live very near there. Giant sequoias.
I've never seen any trees.
Ready? Here we go. Ready? Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, I've seen that.
I was like, I can't believe I have to use that.
This looks great. This reminds me a little bit of Tintin, a little bit of Rue Moderne.
Yep. Yeah. The whole thing is black and white ink washed, and I swear to God, like, it straddles this line between being completely cartoony and completely photorealistic.
Oh, it looks like there's some photo babackgrounds, it looks like.
He definitely uses some photo.
He's using some mixed media too.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Right?
It's a beautiful work. It doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen, and there's just some of the ink wash is amazing. I mean, like, I was moved by it. I was, I made sure to I'm like, look at this page.
That's one of the better looking books I've seen in a while.
It's really good. Yeah.
I mean, it's really something special.
Nice.
And we don't hear so many stories about guys who have this kind of life anymore.
Yeah.
It's in this world where everything is connected. It isn't such a big deal as when it was in the 40s to grow up in America where you didn't get to see the rest of the world all the time, and then travel throughout Europe and the world and learn all these things and meet these different kinds of people.
Right.
In the time, it was really something special. So, and also it's a really neat idea about looking at what things were like, 30, 40 years ago, things like that. Definitely worth going to check out. You can see from the artwork we've shown, it's really gorgeous. And it's a really good way to sort of expand your comic vocabulary. I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it ties into history and it's a personal story and all that.
It's a biography and a history book and a war book.
First Second is really good for these kind of books, and it's got all these great photos from the guy's life. In the back.
Yeah, and in the end, like you get all of a sudden you see the faces and the people. It's great.
Cool. Awesome.
So we span the globe here.
So Alan's War from First Second, Dan Dare from Dynamite,
Dynamite.
and Runaways from Marvel. That's a nice little cross-section of comicdom.
I'll keep you busy.
Yeah. So
Place your orders.
COUSs.
yeah. What is that again?
COUSSs.
Comics of unusual size.
Yes.
Only one S.
Dorks.
COUSs.
So if you have any questions about any of these books, you can shoot us an email at contact@ifanboy.com.
Or you can leave a voicemail 888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697. It's a good reference.
Our another good reference is iFanboy.com, our website, where you can find all sorts of written content, weekly pick of the week podcast, and a written review, all sorts of stuff like that. Make sure you get there, do that stuff.
The double point guy.
Wow, snap.
He's a double snap.
Double point snap.
Who's opening?
I will.
Okay.
And you talk? Okay.
In 3, 2.
Hey, welcome to iFanboy, the video show for the comic book. What was wrong with
You
that?
got a husky.
You went lower. You went an octave lower.
It went husky. I'm sorry, it threw me off.
Sexy.
Hey!
Hey guys.
Whenever you do this, it sounds like a pedophile.
All right. 3, 2.
Oh, we got an outtake now. So we got
3, 2.
Hey, welcome.
3, 2.
Hey, welcome to it. You just scratch? What is this?
There was one that came out and somebody was doing like this.